I couldn't make this up if I tried the day I opened my mailbox and saw that blazing red envelope from the HOA I already knew. You ever get that gut feeling before you even see what's inside? I did. Sure enough, there it was, a formal violation stamped with that HOA logo like it was the seal of the president, signed by none other than Karen herself. I swear this woman treated her seat on the HOA board like she was guarding the gates of heaven. The reason? Apparently my trash bins sat outside a grand total of 12 minutes after pickup. 12. She had included a time-stamped photo as evidence. I guess nothing else gives her life more meaning than catching neighbors red-handed for crimes against suburbia. So there I was holding this letter, just picturing her huddled behind her curtains, stopwatch in one hand, binoculars in the other. This wasn't just petty, this was personal, and everybody knew Karen didn't pick fights. She wasn't planning to win. She once fined my neighbor because the wind chimes were too loud on a day with record-breaking wind. Another time, she tried to restrict what color flowers we could plant out front. Her chosen palette was beige, sad beige, and something called subdued pink, which I'm pretty sure is just beige's depressed cousin. Last month, she left a note on my door because my Halloween display encouraged mischief. It was 3 pumpkins and a ghost that looked like Casper after a bad night. But this cease and desist, accusing me of repeatedly violating neighborhood cohesion. She'd gone full Judge Judy. It even had a fake HOA seal I'm convinced she made at Staples. And the cherry on top, she cited some bylaw about visual pollutants. The language was so vague you could technically apply it to lawn gnomes or an ugly bicycle, but in Karen's world it meant anything she didn't like. I read through her letter, littered with bolded words and legal lingo she'd clearly Googled, and for a second I almost felt bad for her printer. Almost. The truth is, Karen expected me to fold. Like most of the others did, grin and bear it. Maybe let out a little sigh behind closed doors, but ultimately caved to her reign. What she didn't know: I had a secret weapon. My brother-in-law, Mark, now. Mark is a lawyer, but not just any lawyer. He's the guy you call when your company needs to make an entire lawsuit go away. The guy who makes other lawyers suddenly remember they left the stove on at home. So I scanned everything and sent it to Mark, told him I didn't want to sue, just a little legal-friendly fire. Mark called me back within the hour, laughing so hard I could hear his wife in the background telling him to take it outside. "This is exactly my kind of fun," he said, and promised to draft something that'd make Karen wish she'd taken up knitting instead. The next day, his letter arrived, an elegant, razor-sharp reply citing real HOA abuse of power cases, hinting at a countersuit for harassment, and just generally letting Karen know she'd picked the wrong mailbox. I printed it on the thickest paper. I had spritzed a little lavender on it for drama, and slipped it into her mailbox while she peeked out from behind her bushes like a Bond villain. Now you'd think that'd be enough for her to back off, right? No, you don't know Karen. 2 days later, another envelope shows up, twice as thick and reeking of desperation. It's basically a scrapbook of everything I'd ever done wrong. A log of my porch light staying on past 11 red arrows drawn in Sharpie on photos of my lawn screenshots from my Facebook, where I made a joke about HOA horror stories. She'd even highlighted Mark's letter in neon, as if that made it less legal. She demanded I show up for a disciplinary hearing in her living room. That's right, her living room. Folding chairs, scented candles, the works. When I showed this packet to Mark, he just shook his head and said, "Do not put anything in writing, do not engage unless there's an actual board quorum, and whatever you do, please attend if you want to see real-life theater." So I showed up. Cargo shorts. I do what I want. T-shirt full. Dad on a Saturday energy. She answered the door in a navy pantsuit with shoulder pads big enough to double as flotation devices, hair lacquered so tight I could see my reflection. 3 board members sat in a semicircle looking like they were auditioning for a hostage video. Karen had a podium, a side table with an HOA flag she'd probably made on Canva. "Thank you for coming," she intoned, and I fought the urge to salute. She launched into this monologue, waving her packet around like a prosecutor in a made-for-TV movie, listing my crimes against the community bin violations, porch lights undermining the authority of the HOA, whatever that means. One board member, Ted, actually yawned. Sandra kept scrolling her phone. After 20 minutes, Karen demanded I issue a public apology and pay a $500 fine, cash only, to the discretionary fund. I said, "You finished," and without missing a beat explained. None of this was enforceable. There was no quorum, and any fines had to be officially ratified and documented, not scribbled on the back of her grocery list. Karen's face turned a shade of red I'd only ever seen on stop signs. "You're out of order," she snapped. "No, Karen, you're out of order. This whole kangaroo court is out of order." Sandra snorted. Ted coughed to hide a grin, and Karen looked like she might faint. "We have authority," she said, voice trembling, but Sandra and Ted shut it down. "This isn't official." "We're done here," Sandra said, grabbing her purse and bailing. Ted mumbled something about his dog and was gone. Karen's kingdom collapsed in real time. I stretched, thanked her for the invite, and let her stew. But here's the twist. Because there's always a twist. Karen wasn't just a tyrant, she was a hypocrite of Olympic proportions. A few days later, I'm talking to Claire, our neighborhood's unofficial news anchor, who lets it slip that Karen's got an unregistered rental in her basement. Her cousin apparently living there for months, cash under the table, no inspection, no approval. Total violation. And get this? Claire's son works at the county office. Karen never filed for permits when she renovated. Not one. So I start watching. Sure enough, a guy comes and goes through the basement entrance keypad code and everything. County records. No permit for anything at Karen's house in 5 years. Not a single update, not a plumbing job, nothing. Meanwhile, she's calling my Halloween pumpkins a threat to community safety. So I call in a favor my friend at a real estate brokerage knows how to trigger a surprise inspection. Within a week, the county's at her door, yellow vests and clipboards in hand. I just happen to be weeding my garden across the street purely coincidentally and watch it all go down. Karen comes out looking like she's been hit by a freight train. Turns out the inspectors were there for an hour, in and out, snapping photos, making notes. When they leave, Karen just stands there staring, wilted. By evening, there's an official notice on her door, a stop work order. She's got 30 days to undo the illegal renovation or get slapped with daily fines. The HOA, the very club she used as a weapon, is now on the verge of booting her from her precious board seat. And just when you'd think she'd slink away, Karen goes full scorched earth. She posts a vague, threatening violation of community standards note on the neighborhood bulletin, not naming names, but come on, everyone knows who she means. The rumors swirl. Did you see Karen's post? Who's the bad resident? At first I let it slide, but when a kid asked me if I was the troublemaker, I knew she was trying to make this personal. So I go public post the real evidence of her violations on the HOA board, right next to her little rant. Within hours, 3 more neighbors join in. Now the HOA president, Harold Nice Enough Guy Zero Backbone, has no choice. He schedules a public review hearing for Karen. She shows up to the meeting in a red blazer, arms crossed, and even brings a lawyer who looks like he bought his degree online. Harold reads out the complaints, county citations, everything. But the best part, Mark, my brother-in-law, stands up cool as can be and presents a lease agreement with Karen's signature renting her basement illegally. Says she's put the whole HOA at legal risk. Audible gasps. People are actually leaning forward in their chairs. Harold, finally finding his spine, moves to remove Karen from the board. Every hand goes up. Karen just sits there stunned, while the crowd erupts in polite applause. She storms out, lawyer trailing behind her face, set in stone. You'd think that would be the end, but Karen's not done. Overnight, she floods the neighborhood with flyers, actual flyers like it's 1992, accusing me of masterminding a smear campaign. She calls the cops, files harassment charges, even hands the officer a fake restraining order. She typed herself and signed as volunteer-in-chief. The officer apologizes, shrugs, and then hands her a ticket for making a false report. Even the police are done with her. It gets better. County inspectors come back, find more violations, unsafe wiring, fake fire alarms, and slap her with more fines. The HOA, free from Karen, at last votes to ban her from any volunteer positions. She can't even organize the Easter egg hunt anymore. The neighbors, suddenly emboldened, start showing up at my door with cookies, beers, even a homemade t-shirt. Cease and desist. This, Karen. I wear it proudly to the next block party, which, by the way, is the first one in years. We celebrate with a ceremonial retirement for Karen's golden clipboard. Someone glued a tiara to it and mounted it in a shadow box in memoriam, 2015 to 2025. May its tyranny rest in peace. As Karen's house sits neglected, the weeds grow and the mailman starts tossing her mail from the curb. The rest of us rediscover what it's like to actually live in a neighborhood again. The HOA meetings turn friendly. Kids laugh, parents set up wild decorations, and nobody cares if your porch light stays on a little too long. Even the once silent Ted starts a new tradition, the Golden Gnome Award for Community Spirit, which goes to Claire for services to neighborhood intel. Eventually, a family moves into Karen's old place front door, painted teal kids running Wild Moose the Labrador barking in the yard. You know real life. The HOA drops Karen's endless regulations and focuses on stuff that matters, fixing streetlights, building a new playground, hosting movie nights in the park. Mark oversees the charter rewrite. I install a whole army of lawn gnomes facing Karen's former house. Someone asks if I feel bad about how it all turned out. Honestly, I don't. One quiet evening, I stand in my driveway with a coffee watching the sun set over a neighborhood finally at peace. The whole time, Karen thought she was protecting the community, but all she really did was stifle it. Without her, the place bloomed literally and figuratively. The best part. Word is, Karen moved to a retirement community across the country, one with an even stricter HOA. Some people never learn. But around here, things have never been better. So yeah, her cease and desist. The only thing it really stopped was her own reign of nonsense. So what do you think? Is there such a thing as going too far for community standards? Have you ever had a Karen in your neighborhood? Drop your thoughts below and let's hear your wildest HOA stories, because trust me, this is one saga that'll keep on giving.